Hello and welcome to the Past Functional Skills video solutions for the AQA Functional Skills English Level 2 reading sample paper. Before watching this video, please make sure that you've read the 3 sources in the insert and you've attempted to complete the paper yourself. Question 1. In which African country is the Masai Mara Game Reserve? So here we're being asked to identify some key information from the text. We're going to find an African country that has the Masai Mara Game Reserve in it. And we're going to use source A to answer this question. So if we have a quick look at source A, we can see that the first mention of a country is over here. It is Kenya. So the game reserve is in Kenya, and also a luxury villa on the Kenyan coast is mentioned. So the correct answer to this question is Kenya. Question 2. You're advised to use a dictionary for this question. Source A states, the abundant wildlife, including black rhino, ostriches. The word abundant means A, dangerous, B, endangered, C, exciting, or D, plentiful. So in this question, we're being asked to use a dictionary and look at the quote from source A. And we want to find out what the word abundant means from this quotation. So the abundant wildlife. And we've got a bit of a clue here because after abundant wildlife, we've got quite a long list of different animals in the source. So if we have a look at abundant in the dictionary, we can see that it means present in great quantity, more than adequate, or well supplied with something. So in simple terms, that means that there's lots of something. So it's not dangerous. The animals aren't described as particularly scary or dangerous. They're not described as endangered. They're not going extinct. They're not dying out. They're not described as exciting or thrilling. They are described as plentiful, and that means that there's plenty of animals. And if you didn't know the meaning of any of these words, you could have a look in your dictionary for those as well. Question 3. The web page implies that A. Only families of 4 can go on this safari. B. London Heathrow is preferred to regional airports. C. Breakfast in bed is provided at an additional cost. Or D. This holiday experience is very special. Okay, so we've got to decide which one of these is implied by the web page in source A. So which one can we work out from the source? So let's start with A. Only families of 4 can go on this safari. Well, families of 4 are mentioned because at the bottom in the small print here it says 2 adults and 2 children travelling. But it doesn't say that that's the only option. It doesn't say that you can only have 4 people travelling. So that's incorrect. B. London Heathrow is preferred to regional airports. Let's have a look for mentions of airports. Well, it says here that there are flights from London Heathrow, but it also says regional airport departures are available. Now here it's mentioned both, but it doesn't say that one of them is preferable or better than the other. So it's not preferred to regional airports. That's incorrect. C. Breakfast in bed is provided at an additional cost. Well, if we have a look again at the bottom, it says that accommodation and meals are specified in the itinerary, and so accommodation and meals are included in the cost. But it doesn't mention anywhere that you can have breakfast in bed. It says that you can have a delicious breakfast, but it doesn't mention breakfast in bed at all. So that's incorrect. And finally, this holiday experience is very special. So can we infer this from the text? Well, the answer is yes. There's all kinds of persuasive words and phrases that suggest that the travel is extraordinary, and that it's very exclusive, very special, with a professional team with tailor-made high-class holidays. It's a really special experience. It's the trip of a lifetime. So D is the correct answer for this question. Question 4. Using the information in source A, put a tick in the correct box to show whether each statement is true or false. So what we need to do in this question is we need to look at source A and we need to identify whether these statements are true based on the text or whether they are false. So are they correct or incorrect? So let's start with the first one. Can Do Travel have been in business for more than 30 years? So let's have a look at the text and scan it for mentions of how long Can Do Travel have been in business. So Can Do Travel have been in business for more than 30 years. So that statement is true. For more than 30 years, our experienced and professional team have tailor-made high-class holidays. So yes, Can Do Travel have definitely been in business for more than 30 years. Elephants and giraffes live on the Masai Mara Game Reserve. Is that true? Well, yes, that is definitely true, because as soon as the Masai Mara Game Reserve is mentioned, it says that stepping out into the morning sunshine, you see elephants and giraffes grazing. So they live on that game reserve. That is a true statement. You cannot start this holiday at the weekend. Is that true? Well, this one you might have to scan really carefully through the text, but you will see at the bottom here that it says daily departures. So that means that you can set off on any day, including Saturdays and Sundays. So that is false. You can start the holiday at the weekend. And finally, you can horse ride on the Masai Mara Game Reserve. So let's scan the text for any mentions of horse riding. And we can see that you horse ride along the beach. So this isn't mentioning the game reserve, this is specifying the beach. So it's not the safari at the Masai Mara Game Reserve. We're talking about the beach here on the Kenyan coast at Kinondo, Kwetu. So the horse riding takes place on the beach, not on the game reserve, so that is false. Question 5. The writer of Source A presents both facts and opinions about the safari and beach tour. Identify 2 facts about the safari and beach tour, and then identify 2 opinions about the safari and beach tour. Okay, so we're looking specifically at Source A, and we want to find 2 facts and 2 opinions specifically about the safari and the beach tour. Okay, so the difference between a fact and opinion, a fact can be proven, whereas an opinion is something that you can agree with or disagree with. It's something that someone thinks or feels. So, fact 1, Kenya is in Africa. Is that something someone thinks or feels? No, so it's not an opinion, it's a fact. We can prove that Kenya's in Africa. We can get a map and prove that. Fact 2, elephants and giraffes live on the Masai Mara. Well, we can see from the source that that is a true fact. You can see elephants and giraffes on the Masai Mara. So that is, you can't dispute that, that is true. 2 opinions, the tents are luxurious. So this descriptive word, this adjective luxurious here, tells us that this is an opinion. It's something that somebody thinks. They feel that the tents are luxurious, and we could disagree with that. We could say, well, I don't think this tent is particularly luxurious. It doesn't have a shower in it. Opinion 2, the breakfast is delicious. Again, you've got an adjective here, a describing word, and we could disagree with this. We could think, well, this breakfast isn't particularly to our taste, so we could disagree, and that's an opinion. So they're 2 really good facts and opinions there. Question 6. Explain how the writer of Source A uses words and language techniques to persuade people to go on the safari and beach tour. You should provide examples from Source A in your answer. So here we're focusing on source A, and we want to look at the words and language techniques that have been used to persuade people to go on this beach tour and safari. And we have to provide examples in our answer, so that means quotes from the source. So the student here has written that persuasive, emotive words are repeated throughout, like luxury, in order to emphasise the idea of a high-class experience to the reader. The detailed listing of animals puts emphasis on the amount there is to see, for example, black rhinos, ostriches, cheetahs. This therefore encourages people to book. Additionally, the writer instills a confidence in can-do travel in the reader through words such as world-class experts and experienced and professional team. This makes the reader trust them. Okay, so the key word here is to explain, and the student here has definitely explained their answer. They've identified a persuasive technique. So we're looking at persuading the reader, and straight away they've signposted to the examiner that they're talking about persuasive techniques. And they've mentioned a technical term here, emotive words, emotive language, so words that are to do with emotion and make you feel something. So luxury, and also repeated, so a bit of repetition as well, that's another technique. And they've explained why the writer's done this, why they've used emotive words like luxury. They've used an example there. And they've explained that it emphasises the idea of high class to the reader. So that is the effect they're creating there. How the reader thinks, how the reader feels as a result of reading the text. The detailed listing, that's another language technique there, of animals puts emphasis on the amount there is to see. So that's a little bit of explanation. The writer is emphasising the amount there is to see there, and then they've used an example. And that encourages people to book. So that's a really good explanation there, how listing the amount there is to see is encouraging people to book. And then finally, the writer instills a confidence, calling them world-class experts and an experienced professional team. So here's a really good use of words from the text that will make the reader trust can-do travel. So that's a really detailed answer, and it would get all 3 marks. Question 7. You're advised to use a dictionary for this question. Source B states, approve only those holidays which meet their stringent criteria. The word stringent means A, ethical, B, numerous, C, strict, or D, limited. So here we're going to use our dictionary, and we're going to use the quote from source B, and we need to find out what the word stringent means. So we need to define this, find a word that could replace stringent in this sentence. So these words here, we can look them up in a dictionary as well, and we see that ethical means morally right, numerous means lots of or many, strict means constraining or urgent or severe, and then limited means that there's a few or not enough amount of something. So if we look up stringent in the dictionary, we see that it means rigorously binding or exacting, strict, severe or compelling, constraining or urgent. So the word that would fit best here is strict. Strict is actually used in the dictionary definition, and it definitely is the closest word to stringent. It could be used to replace stringent in this sentence. Question 8. According to source B, responsible travel approves some holidays which are expensive, cares more about local people than tourists, is less efficient than travel agents, or teaches tourists the local language. Remember that for any questions where you are given an answer box, you need to provide one answer, which means that only one of these options is correct. So we need to go through the text and we need to identify which one is correct. So which thing does responsible travel do? Does it approve some holidays which are expensive? Well, when we look at this subheading about cost, we can see that some approved holidays can be expensive. So they do approve some holidays which are expensive, and A is the correct answer. Let's take a look at why the other options are incorrect. So does responsible travel care more about local people than tourists? Well, we've got the needs of local people mentioned in this subheading here. Remember that subheadings can help you navigate the text. And it says that 10% of the world's population depends on tourism, and many of them live in developing countries where tourism is growing fast. We at Responsible Travel consider the needs of local people, creating better places for them to live, which are also better for our travellers to visit. So they are considering the needs of local people. They care about local people. They want to make their places to live better, but they also care about travellers. They want to make these places better places for travellers to visit. So they care about both local people and tourists, and they don't say that they care about one more than the other. So that's incorrect. Is responsible travel less efficient than travel agents? Well, they say that they aren't travel agents and they don't sell holidays, but they don't say that they are less efficient. They say that they approve holidays which meet stringent criteria, but they don't say anything about being less efficient or less effective in any way than travel agents. So that's incorrect. And finally, teaches tourists the local language. So let's have a scan through the text and look for any mentions of language. And we can see that local guides help locals and visitors to communicate with each other. But it doesn't say that they are teaching them the language. They could just be translating or communicating non-verbally. So they don't necessarily teach tourists the local language. So the correct option for this question is A. Question 9. Using the information in source B, put a tick in the correct box to show whether each statement is true or false. Okay, so here we want to read source B and tick the boxes to decide whether something's true, whether it's correct or false, incorrect. So, a whale watching holiday in Antarctica costs £7,885. Let's have a look at the costs. And here it says a 15-day trip to Antarctica costs that amount. It costs £7,885. The whale watching is in Hawaii and it costs quite a bit less. So that's false. Local guides accompany visitors to local communities. Well, we can see that there are local guides and they are helping the tourists to communicate with local people. And it does say here that they are the tour operators, the local guides accompany visitors in local communities. So that is true. Visitors need to take their own reusable water bottles. No, it says that they should be given reusable water bottles, not take their own. So that's false. And then finally, 10% of the world's population depends on tourism. Well, it says right here that 10% of the world's population depends on tourism. So that's true. Question 10. The Customer Director of Responsible Travel said that the company creates better places for local people to live. List 3 ways in which local communities benefit from holidays approved by Responsible Travel. Okay, so we want to find 3 ways that local communities are benefiting. So that means it's making their lives better, improving their lives from holidays approved by Responsible Travel. So let's scan through the text and look for some benefits for local people. So it says here that tour operators are strongly encouraged to support local projects by donating money and giving staff opportunities to volunteer. So local projects are being supported by volunteers and being given money, donations, and this benefits the local community. So the student's written here that money is donated and volunteers help in local projects. And also there are employment opportunities for local people because it says here that tour operators must employ local people. So this student has correctly identified 3 benefits for local communities and they would get all 3 marks. Question 11. Source B gives details on the role of local guides who work with responsible travel. List 3 skills a local guide needs for this role. So we want to find 3 skills that a local guide would need to work with responsible travel. Okay, so we're going to have to infer some of these skills from the text. So if we have a look at the text and we see the role of local guides, we can see that the role of local guides is key in this new kind of tourism. They work with tourists to ensure that they understand the culture before they meet local people. They help locals and visitors to communicate with each other, giving travellers an insight into the life and culture of local people that they would not be able to get otherwise. Guides are experts in the best places to go and can take travellers off the tourist track. So here, the students identified that some of the skills they need is good communication skills because they're communicating with tourists often and with local people as well. So they would have to be friendly and open because they're spending all day around various people. And finally, they need to know their local area well. They're giving tours, they're showing people around the area, they're guiding people. So the student will get all 3 marks for this, for inferring this information from the text. Question 12. You're advised to use a dictionary for this question. Source C states, "Will notice if an animal is becoming agitated." The word agitated means A, confused, B, playful, C, tired, or D, unsettled. So here we're going to get our dictionary and we're going to look up the word agitated to see what it means. So the definition of agitated is excited or disturbed. Now that doesn't mean that they're confused, they're not puzzled about their surroundings. It doesn't mean that they're playful, they're not playing with anyone if they've been disturbed or excited. And it definitely doesn't mean that they're tired. The correct answer here is unsettled. they've been disturbed, they've been upset or excited, so they are unsettled. And that word could be a very good replacement for agitated in this sentence. Now, if you weren't sure what any of these words mean, you could have a look at them in the dictionary as well, and then just choose the one that best fits with the word agitated. Question 13. From reading source C, list 3 things you will learn about the animals that you might meet on safari. So we want to use source C, and we want to find 3 things about the animals on safari. Okay, so if we have a quick look at the source, we can see that wild animals do not associate with vehicles with humans or food, so you're safe if you stay inside. So that suggests that if you don't stay in your vehicle, if you walk outside of the vehicle, then you may be attacked. We also learn that food may attract animals. We learn that if you find yourself close to a wild animal, you shouldn't run. That suggests that an animal will attack you if you run. And also, you've got to listen to your guide because they understand animal behaviour. They will notice if an animal is becoming agitated. Now, if you need a guide to tell you that an animal is becoming agitated, then it's probably difficult to tell yourself. So you should follow your guide's instructions. So your guide's a bit of an expert, and the animals, it's very difficult to tell if they're becoming agitated. So we've seen that animals may attack a human on foot. It's not easy to tell when an animal is becoming agitated, and animals may regard a running human as prey and chase them. Compare source A and source C in terms of what they say and how the material is conveyed. You may wish to refer to the level of detail, presentation and language, formality, possible bias, and how the writers come across. So here we're comparing source A and C. Make sure that you don't include anything about source B in your answer. And we want to find out what they say and how the material is conveyed. So how are they saying it? And that includes detail, presentation and language features. So we're looking at presentational features and language features like metaphors, similes, repetition, that kind of thing. Formality, so is it formal or informal? Bias, are the writers biased in any particular way? Do they have a specific view? And how the writers come across. So that includes things like the style and the tone of writing, how the writing makes you think and how it makes you feel. So the student's written that both sources discuss animals. However, source A emphasises the positives of seeing animals through detailed listing, seen in black rhino, ostriches, cheetahs, to encourage the reader to book a holiday. By contrast, source C has a much more informative tone when talking about the animals, and its aim is to keep the visitors safe, using imperatives to do so, seen in don't carry food as this may attract animals. So here we can see that the student is comparing the sources because they've used that keyword both. Both sources discuss animals. And we are addressing what they say. They're talking about animals. And source A is emphasising the positives of seeing them, whereas source C is informing people in order to keep them safe from the animals. And the students also used quotations to support these points. So black rhino, ostriches, cheetahs, this is to encourage the reader. So a little bit of the effect there as well. And they've identified a language technique listing here. And then for source C, they've spoken about the tone of the source. So how the writers come across, the tone is informative. It's giving information. And it uses imperatives. So that's another language feature. Imperatives are just command words like don't or do. And they've used a quote here to support their point. So that's a really good paragraph, and it explains a lot about both sources. It compares them well. Source A uses inclusive language in the first person, such as "join us now" in an effort to persuade the reader, making them feel more welcome on the trip. In contrast, Source C uses short sentences for clarity due to the purpose of the text being to keep the reader safe. Okay, so we've got Source A and Source C being talked about, and instead of making a comparison saying what both sources do, we are looking at a contrast, differences between the sources. So inclusive language in first person, that's a technique that's being used, and the aim is to persuade the reader. So there's a little bit of explanation there, making them feel welcome. And then Source C using short sentences. So that is a method, a technique that the writer's using. And they've explained this difference. So one of them wants to make them feel welcome, and the others want to keep readers safe. Finally, both sources use direct address to appeal to the reader, but for different reasons. Source A uses it to make the reader feel involved and welcome on the trip in order to persuade them to go. For example, seen in "You spend your final few days in this extraordinary continent." While Source C also uses direct address, it uses it to get the reader to listen to their safety message and take it on board. Okay, so it's mentioned, the student here has mentioned direct address to appeal to the reader. So that's the use of words like you, your, and they've said that they use it to make the reader feel involved and welcome. Whereas in Source C, it is used to get the reader to listen to safety messages. So overall, this answer has compared Source A and Source C. It's stated what each source says, and it's given a lot of detail about how the material is conveyed. And they've even added explanation here as to why the material might be conveyed that way. So they would definitely get all 6 marks here.